Welcome to a very special edition of a Leg Up live stream. I am your host, Sackreligious, joined here by Chris G. We are going to be bringing you guys a couple very special drafts today. We're going to be firing off at two Big Mitten drafts today. For those of you that aren't familiar with the format, the Big Mitten is the high stakes playoff best ball offering on Underdog's platform. $250 entry fee. The reason Chris and I are doing this stream today is a big group of ship chasers, I believe 23 of us in total, all
That's right,
pooled
buddy.
some funds for a couple Mastiff drafts this off season. And of our two teams, we had one make it into the playoffs and get knocked out in the semifinals. But with the cash that we got from that, we decided rather than distributing just a very minor profit to everyone, we wanted to roll over our winnings into some playoff contests. So Chris and I will be doing these two Big Mittens, and then the ship chasing syndicate, shall we call it, is responsible for constructing 5 different FFPC playoff contest teams. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I just know my team's going to be the one to take down that FFPC playoff challenge. No question.
Well,
Wait till see what kind of curveballs we got going in that.
I'm happy to ride your coattails then on the FFPC challenge, because initially I had thought that the Sack squad was going to be taking it down with our team. But you know what? Since we all have agreed that we're chopping whatever winnings we get from any of the teams, if it's your team, if it's my team, I'm just happy to bring home some winnings. The bragging rights would be sweet if it's my team, but yeah, we're all on the same team here today.
Oh, for sure, man. I just love a little playful banter. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think right now in the banter box score, currently there's a large part of the syndicate that's lording over their CD Lamb pick on you. You were a relatively vocal CD Lamb fader during this season, so I know right now you're trying to get one over on the CD Lamb truthers and maybe the playoff contests where you've already got you've got some great historical success with your gauntlet takedown. So maybe you can run it back here and really have the final bragging rights in the group.
Yeah, you know what? I really thought CeeDee Lamb wasn't going to do it just because of Mike McCarthy. There's no doubting that guy's talent, but seeing Mike McCarthy change halfway into the season when Tony Pollard wasn't doing it, I was impressed by that. I mean, it doesn't matter coming from me, but I was like, wow, they're actually throwing the ball a lot more than I thought they would. So, yeah, I have to eat crow. He blew up on week 17, and I literally told my dad walking into Sunday, I'm like, yeah, it's not going to be a good day today. It's already done.
I've got to be honest. Like through week 6, I was like, "Oh no, Chris was so right about the CD Lamb thing." And I had been pretty vocal this offseason about like it's coaches have to be either truly terrible or extremely all time great to really have a major impact on the field. Like the players are the ones taking the snaps and running the plays. Like the last time Mike McCarthy was on a football field, I wasn't born
Yeah.
yet. So it doesn't matter that Mike McCarthy might be a donkey. I thought CeeDee Lamb would dominate, but for weeks 1 through 6, it kind of mattered a whole lot that Mike McCarthy was a donkey. But fortunately, it did break the other way for CeeDee Lamb. Um,
Yeah, I
now,
got one of my two bold predictions right. Arthur Smith was bad, and that proved true. And now I got the Mike McCarthy one wrong. So, hey, I'm 1 for 2.
and you know what? This the games that we play here, like all these different basketball formats, a lot of them are kind of like baseball, where you don't need to bat 1,000 to be, there's no one batting 1,000. You can bat 300 and get in the Hall of Fame. So sometimes it's just about those swings you connect on. If you really get it square, those are the ones that can actually win you all the money. So, fading a lot of Falcons players, that was probably a pretty big boon to your portfolio this season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You want me to start hopping in here, buddy? What do you
Oh
think?
yeah. Go ahead and queue us up. I know sometimes these things take a little while to fill. So while Chris is queuing us up, I'll kind of explain what we're going to do for the format today. So our primary focus today is draft the best team possible. So Chris is piloting this first one, and we both, I mean, Chris and I have discussed the game pretty extensively. We've talked a lot about it. We think very, very similarly about, how to play the game in the right way. We might have tiny little differences here and there in player takes, but for the vast majority of the time, we're probably going to be making the same decisions. So while Chris pilots his draft, he is just going to be 100% locked in, focused on the draft. I'm going to be walking you through his decisions as he makes them here and kind of talking about places he could pivot to, while he's got, the supercomputer firing up here, and he is guiding us, nimbly navigating through these Big Mitten streets. And then after we wrap up Chris's team here, I'll go ahead and share my screen and fire one up as well. And then Chris will return the favor and let me focus on the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start pinging guys in the channels here to let them know that Big Mitten's about to hit it. Let's see here. Probably get crutches in here for sure.
Let's see. I do believe he still has some Big Mitten bullets. I know he had maxed the little gauntlet pretty fast. I kept hitting him up when little gauntlets were 5 of 6. It's like, dude, I already maxed. Like, oh no.
Yeah, you know what we can do while we wait? Do you want me to show you some of these monstrosities I got on the little gauntlet? You want to see?
Yeah. Let's see some of your teams you got.
Let me see. Is that working here? No, I gotta share this one. Apparently it's loading. Here we go. So, hey, let me show you this bad boy here. Eh? Let's look at this one.
Okay, so we got Dak, Pacheco, Justice Hill, Rico Dowdle. The Rico Dowdle pick I love, because I feel like end up with so much Tony Pollard because he makes a ton of Cowboys' path to go to the conference championship looks relatively clean, knock on wood for the Cowboys. But and then you get CeeDee Lamb, Zay Flowers, Travis Kelce. My goodness. So that's the monster right there. Really, the Lamb, Flowers, Kelce, Pacheco, all in the first 4 rounds, where there were different windows during the draft where Lamb and Kelce were both first rounders. Zay is a second rounder right now. Kelce was a second rounder when he wasn't, but now you've got, between Kelce and Pacheco, they'll slide a little bit in certain rooms. So the fact that you're able to get this is probably going to be one of the better versions of a Cowboys Chiefs and Cowboys Ravens team that's available in the gauntlet. So I really like this. And then you've got, the secondary Cowboys pieces with Bateman. That's really nice. And I do think, the difference between Dowdle and Pollard is like Pollard's going to get more volume, but a lot of the volume is like that Zeke-ish volume from last year, where it's like, do you care that he's getting 10 of the carries up the middle for an average of 3.5 yards a carry? Like, not really. It's 3-4 fantasy points maybe. And so it just comes down to touchdown variance, I feel like, for Dowdle and Pollard. And Dowdle was running good last week. He looked like he had some fresh legs. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Dowdle wind up outscoring Pollard in a game. And if that happens in the game where it matters, that's a huge one for you.
Yeah, every year in the gauntlet, people think the running back starting, like the top drafted ADP-wise running back is the one to get them home, but usually it ends up being the backup. Like, everyone thought in the first gauntlet it was going to be Ronald Jones. It was Leonard Fournette. They thought it was going to be Darrell Henderson, and it was Cam Akers. Remember that? Like,
oh yeah,
it just happens. I mean, like, you got to be on your toes. So taking these secondary running backs are a great option, especially if one of them gets injured. Then he's got the whole thing to himself. So.
Can you give me your take on Elijah Mitchell? He's been a hotly, a contentious point of discussion in the streets lately. Some people saying Eli Mitchell is a fish pick. You should never take Eli Mitchell. He's purely a bet on CMC injury. The only time he really got work was when CMC had that calf injury. I've heard other people defend Eli Mitchell pick as, yeah, it is a bet on CMC injury, and injuries happen, bro. And when the CMC teams suffer the injuries, I want to be positioned with a 49ers team that can still take it home and then benefit from that from Eli Mitchell. So where do you come down on that debate?
I mean, I'm going to take exposure on everybody, especially doing 150, And honestly, if you don't like Eli Mitchell, let me interest you in some Kyle Juszczyk. You know what I'm saying? All he has to do is fall in 1 or 2 times, and he's going to hit the optimal lineup for the Super Bowl. So I don't mind Eli Mitchell. He gets drafted insanely high by the Brock Purdy IU drafter, and that's just something that happens a lot because you don't have much options after that. So I prefer CMC, obviously, or I prefer just like punting Eli Mitchell and grabbing a couple of the AFC conference running backs. I hope that they meet them in the finals. But if I'm forced to get like 5 guys into the Super Bowl, I'm taking Eli Mitchell. It's just what it is. Only if I get forced.
That definitely makes sense to me. Yeah, I have a good amount of Eli Mitchell. I got most of him earlier in my drafts. And the thing is, though, like Eli Mitchell 10th round versus Eli Mitchell 8th round, because he has come up a little bit, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, because like those last rounds, they're all so they're pretty fluid. Like it's not the same guys going undrafted in every draft, especially now. If you haven't been drafting very much today, it's been pretty crazy out there relative to how it has been in the last few weeks. You get a lot of casual drafters taking multiple quarterbacks when they don't need to. Sometimes 3 quarterbacks. You get people not even able to field like a starting Super Bowl team and not able to field a starting 5-man roster in week 1. I've seen that a couple times today, which is like, I'm dead to the finals if I actually get there, but I'll never possibly make it to the finals because I can't even field 5. It's like, I never thought I could see teams be like double dead, but people are finding ways today. So it's crazy out there right now.
Yeah, it's awful, honestly. Getting those 3 quarterback teams just going against you, and you're like, well, we all lost $25 here today. That's what happened. We lost. Only one person's going to get their money back, essentially, or 2, excuse me. But it's just awful. Actually, there's a question here, Zach. I want to highlight this so you can see it here.
Ooh, great question, Michael. So now is this 8-person final or 10-person final?
Let me. I believe it's an 8-person final. Let me double check that. Haven't done a lot of big 10 seats. You are correct, sir. 10.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure it's 10. But yeah, the way I'm building is if it's non-bye week teams, like if I have 2 non-bye week teams in the final, I'm definitely still building for 5 because it's much easier to get those into the finals, right? Now, if you're building double bye week teams, often I'll stop at 4 in the Big Mitten. So if I'm going Ravens 49ers, I'm happy to stop at just 4. And usually sometimes I could even sell myself on 3, but it just depends on what your opportunity cost is, like what you're passing on to add add some first round advance rate benefit and trade off some week 2, week 3 and Super Bowl benefit. So in general, that question is like, what it's getting at is directionally correct. You don't need a full 5, especially if you have bye week teams on there. But I would say don't sell yourself too short on that. Like I still think you should probably be going for 4 total players, even if it's 2 bye week teams. And if it's non-bye week teams, you definitely want to be going for 5. All right, so we drew the 5 hole here. A lot of names I recognize. We've got NSOS, who's in the Discord all the time. We've got Crutches, BR and Daly's Crusher, always out here in the streets. Short Gamer, who I believe took down a Millie Maker this last year, if I'm remembering correctly. So Short Gamer has definitely had a good last couple months here. EDJ, I don't recognize. Is that someone who you recognize?
No, I do remember. I do know the 6 hole.
Yeah, Scrytop I recognize as well. So usually
friends
that's friends and family draft, and this format is my favorite format to have a friends and family draft in. just because when everyone kind of understands the parameters of the game that we're playing and gets the objective, you can all build really strong teams. It's not like, in season-long best ball where, someone comes out and they got all the values in the draft and they look like the favorite to advance. In this format, everyone can win inside your initial pod. Now, still just going to be two of us that advance, but we can all build teams that are fundamentally sound. And so Chris starts with the 249ers here with Debo and Kittle, which is exactly what I would do in the spot that he was in. Josh Allen going in the 4 spot is a little interesting to me. And then he follows it up with Tyreek, which, I'm not a huge fan of that. But hopefully this guy is predictable. He's definitely one where we're going to want to keep an eye on him going forward, because we know it looks like the 6 hole is going to stay in their lane, right? They do Ayuk, Purdy right away. Lamar drafter, Crutch making sense with his Amon-Ra pick. He'll probably go into, doing Detroit as one of his options for playing the quarterback that way and getting his team out of round 1. I wouldn't be surprised to see him open up some alternatives throughout the draft just to give himself a couple different outs if need be.
Short gamer has a lot of versatility going Dallas and Kansas City. Really well done. He has a lot of optionality going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like having both Pollard and Pacheco open. That feels really good. You can end up, I feel like, pushing that running back spot a little bit if you get a different position that you're wanting to capitalize on, and you can end up pushing Mahomes or Dak oftentimes like this as well. But no pushing Mahomes in this room. MSOS kind of pounces on that, ends up with a CMC Rashi Rice Mahomes start. The thing that I'm worried about for MSOS is he's probably not going to get Pacheco to come back. And so he's going to need to find an alternative for his round 1 running back score. So we're definitely in a trickier spot here, and I agree with what Chris did. Basically, in my opinion, it's a decision between playing it through Kansas City or playing it through Miami here with your running back, but you kind of need to take one of those running backs here, be it Pacheco or Mostert. And really, it's Mostert and Achane, probably the same thing. What's tough now, though, is the Chiefs are kind of closed off early. We don't have a ton of Chiefs left until very late. And so now Chris is deciding which direction we're going for these 49ers. And so right now it looks like we're opting for the Cleveland path. So we're going to be playing towards a Cleveland and 49ers Super Bowl. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do something a little sneaky here as well. I'll kind of save that for if we get to it. But right now, for our round 1 scores that are going to hit our lineup, we do have Pacheco and Cooper. So both those guys are going to project fairly well. And then we've, of course, got our 2 49ers that we're ideally planning on making the Super Bowl, but not against the Chiefs, since we will not have a quarterback in that matchup, since Purdy and Mahomes are both off the board. And so I'm interested to see what MSOS does here with Pacheco gone. He's going to have to open up another team here. The Lions don't look terribly attractive to open up with the Laporta injury and Brown and Gibbs gone. Pollard is gone as well, so he does opt into the Rams here. And so he's going kind of I saw someone say this in the Discord, and I thought it was kind of clever. He's going a sacrificial Rams kind of build, where he knows that his Rams aren't going to make it out of round 2. But he's playing for them to upset Detroit right now. Round 2, they meet the 49ers with his CMC, and then he loses those Rams pieces, but they were able to get him through to round 3. And he's hoping that with his CMC and Chiefs pieces in round 3, he's alive. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with what Chris has queued up here with Njoku. It feels weird because, you've got a big, you're scrolling quite a bit to get to Njoku. But when you really think through what makes sense for this team, Njoku definitely fits because we're really trying to just lock up. Right now, we're playing Cleveland and 49ers go to the Super Bowl. So when you're viewing it through that lens, like, yeah, of course, these Cleveland guys are the most valuable players on the board. We do have an opening in the NFC because we've only accounted for San Francisco in the NFC. And so this is a really interesting spot where you can take Brandon Cooks, who has about double the probability to make the conference championship as A.J. Brown does. But if A.J. Brown is healthy, then he probably projects for a good bit more than Brandon Cooks. So kind of an interesting spot. I'll let Chris make his decision here before I say what I do. And I would have gone with Cooks too. If you can get really what I love is if you can get a San Francisco Dallas combination in whatever type of build it is you're going for, especially when you haven't had to give up any of your other core pieces that you're wanting to fit into your team for that feels really good to me. You're playing into the highest probability outcome, and it's not like these are teams that we don't anticipate scoring lots of points. 49ers, we can definitely see lighten up the scoreboard, and Cowboys are going to be at home for 2 games. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see, Brandon Cooks be a score that we're really happy to have in our lineup in round 1.
What do you think? Should I minimize it so you can see more? Is that good?
I can see just fine, but I maybe the chat wants you to zoom in a little bit. That seems fine to me, and I'll kind of walk us through for the audio listeners and or the those folks who are having to squint a little bit. So yeah, right now we're sitting here with no quarterback, but we've got a pretty clear plan to go into Joe Flacco and Jerome Ford. And so the thing that's really nice about the Browns, and this is true about a lot of the kind of middling seeds, the guys from 2 to 5, really in most both of the conferences, is you end up with decent conference championship probability, a team that's going to contribute round 1 to try and help you get out of that first round, and they're not terrible projecting players either. It's not like we're having to go with the teams that we really don't think are going to be putting up very many points. So yeah, the Jerome Ford click makes a ton of sense here. And so from this spot, the draft is kind of piloting itself at this point, right? Like we know who's really on the menu for us to click. We don't really have to break structure very much here.
What do you think, Elijah Mitchell or Juwan? What do you think? Any input?
I think Elijah Mitchell probably gives us more, like in the event that CMC is injured, then when we get to the finals, we win all the money, right? And so if you want to play it that way, I think it's Mitchell. And I also don't think you're giving up very much by taking Mitchell over Jennings. I think they're both pretty thin, but the contingent upside of Mitchell is so much higher, right? If Debo or Ayuk or Kittle get injured, nothing happens to Jawan Jennings, right? He's still a Jawan Jennings. But if CMC gets injured, you do have that contingent upside of Mitchell. And in a field this small, where you could very well be one of 2 or even 3 San Francisco teams, Elijah Mitchell just wins you all the money if the other people don't have him. So I do like that a lot. In the larger fields where you might show up and there's a bunch of Elijah Mitchell teams, I think it's not as attractive. Not to say that I don't have Elijah Mitchell on some teams in the larger field stuff, but it's just food for thought where, if we get that contingent upside, we're probably realizing the benefit of that contingent upside here, where in the larger field stuff, it might just be, okay, we needed that and then something else. And so that's kind of the way I feel about it.
Yeah, I really like Short Gamer's team. This is a really nice team. He's probably going to take like a 9th or 10th round Kansas City guy, Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Justin Woodson.
Yeah. helps him in week 1, and then also the probability of the Ravens meeting the Chiefs in the conference championship, when you assume that the Ravens are there, is 85%. It's like when the Ravens go to the conference championship, it is almost always the Chiefs that accompany them, just the way that the bracket shakes out and who the opponents would be. So.
One, two. You know what? We're kind of concentrated, and we got 2 bye week guys and the wide receiver. I think I'm going to just go.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that one. And I think this is a good example of large field versus small field as well. Large field, if I'm playing the Browns to get to the Super Bowl, like, yeah, let me just tack on, Elijah Moore, because not everyone's going to have him there. And so, but here, 10-team final, we might be the only Browns 49ers team in the final. So, all right, you want to recap your team, Chris?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to make it bigger here. Can you all see it? Okay. So I started off the first round. I'm actually, like, as the gets near to playoff season, I'm disliking the back half of the draft more, because you're kind of forced to take the alpha guys and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, and you're taking an 0 for 2 in the beginning. I mean, it's fine because those guys can win you the weeks on their own. But I was really shocked that the 101 went Mahomes so early. And it allowed me, I was just going to say, you know what, let me take Pacheco. He's a solid running back. The Dolphins defense is Swiss cheese. They're going to run it up. And they've been playing very run-centric compared to throwing it as often as they are. And everything's been going through Pacheco a little bit more, in my opinion. And then when I get boxed out of the AFC guys, because Josh Allen goes early, Lamar goes early, Patrick Mahomes goes at the 3, I end up going with Amari Cooper, David Njoku, and then I needed some points on the other side, and I took Brandon Cooks. And then we ended up with the Cleveland stack, Jerome Ford, Joe Flacco. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 Browns. We got 3 San Francisco 49ers with Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. And then we took a couple Dallas guys to appease Steph, with Jalen Tolbert and Brandon Cooks. Deep shot plays that can win us the week. Why not?
Yeah, I like it. Very solid. And that's the thing that I like about this format. Like, we didn't have to get really fancy or off the wall here. We kind of played what the room gave us. So I'll go ahead and get queued up for a draft, because it'll take a little bit to fill, and then I'll go ahead and share my screen here. So bear with me for 1 second while I get that going.
Just rename the team Mastiff Team.
Yep, I got to make sure to do that on mine as well. I have not been following good naming conventions here for the playoffs. I've just been doing so much volume that I have not had time to name everything and go through all these teams. So everything is just all unnamed, very hard to navigate.
Yeah, shout out to the Achievers here. It's a great question. I actually mix it up a lot. Like, I actually feel like I'm more comfortable with Pacheco, as negatively correlated as that sounds. I just like knocking out the quarterback and running back and then having 1-1. So I can literally just hold on 1 second. There we go. I can literally just focus on wide receiver and tight end. So the Chiefs like to throw it to a lot of different receivers throughout the season so far. So ending up with Justin Watson, MVS, Richie James, Noah Gray, McCall Hardman, you can add a lot of stuff at the end. And honestly, Pacheco seems like he's set to dominate week 1. And then McKinnon comes back. He might lose some work, but he's going to have the base down work. We'll see.
Yep. Yeah. Very, very well put. And yeah, it's kind of funny. A lot of the 49ers build, the kind of 2 different 49ers builds, if you will. I guess there's 3 if you consider, the 1 49er pass catcher plus Purdy. But you've got 49er pass catcher plus Purdy. You've got 2 49ers pass catchers like G just did. And then you've got the CMC builds. And all 3 of those kind of lend themselves pretty well to the Chiefs, just the way that the board falls. So it is you'll wind up asking yourself that question of, oh, do I go, Kelsey or Rice or Pacheco here? How do I try and push it around? And I'll say this, like if you're the CMC team and you end up with CMC Kittle, there's times where I actually don't even go with the Chiefs because you have such a harder time pushing it around because you're only going to get to take one of them there. And that doesn't really dissuade the rest of the room from Chiefs that much. Say I take, Pacheco there because I really want to lock in the running back on the Chiefs and I'm praying a pass catcher and Mahomes gets back to me to quarterback my CMC squad. You really haven't dissuaded the room from taking Mahomes and the pass catchers. And so sometimes you just end up with a one-off Pacheco there and you've closed off one of your AFC teams. And if you're trying to stay within structure on that and not have, get too far outside the rules because you don't have a ton of bye week players, that can kind of shoot you in the foot there. So sometimes I'll just from that one hole, especially when I see the Tyreek team diverting from Dolphins, doing something like if they go Tyreek, Josh Allen, for example, and Diggs is still on the board, like I know that they're going to happily click Diggs if I start going into the Dolphins, and they'll just, gladly click away all the Bills players, and I can then siphon off the rest of the Dolphins, and then I'm basically playing the 1v1 when I get to the Super Bowl of CMC versus Tyreek for all the money, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. If we were talking last week, I would definitely push Mahomes. But the way it's been going now in the drafts, it's like, hey, CMC, Pacheco, Mahomes, and then you're just like, hope that something comes back to you, another pass catcher, which it more than likely will. I've been mixing up in the gauntlet streets where I have actually gone second round early Kelsey, like at the 7-8 turn, like 7-8 pick, because it throws everybody off, and then no one wants to take Mahomes on the other side of the board, and allows me to get all these guys with like one good San Francisco piece to try to differentiate myself, because I'm trying to build great teams that are going to win it all. And right now, there hasn't been a lot of that in the gauntlet streets,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The gauntlet has been really hard to draft in lately, especially if you're trying to play it through the favorites, which ideally that's the way that we do want to be playing, these tournaments. It's not like you get rewarded, disproportionately for playing an underdog, especially ones that are being drafted in every room. Just because you decide, oh, I'm going to actually play it through, let's say, the Texans to the Super Bowl. It's like, well, the Texans, they hadn't been drafted previously. Let's pick a different one. Let's say I'm going to play it as, the Lions to the Super Bowl. Well, if you make sure you get all the Lions and you reach for them and you've got everyone all stacked up, like you don't really gain just because you're, thinking that you're being contrarian by being like the Lions win the Super Bowl. It doesn't benefit you at all because every room, 1 out of 6 people have the Lions, if they're stacking them up. So this is the kind of format where by leaning into the favorites, you can kind of get yourself a little bit of an advantage, which is hard for people to wrap their heads around. But that is one of the interesting things about this format. So
ladies and gentlemen, we got the 6 and 7 picks. So not only are we drafting in the back half again, it's going to be incumbent on Sack now to figure out if he's going to differentiate from the plan. I don't think he will, but man, this is going to be interesting here because we've already taken a Debo, Kittle team, and it'll be interesting to see if anything wonky happens in this draft. But it's the same old guys. We got. Can you zoom in just one more click if you can there, Sack, so I can read the names? There we go. Thank you, sir. So we got MSOS, who's now at the 5 spot. We got Crutches at the 3 spot, so he'll probably go Lamar again. And we got our boy Copper Prices from the Dog Bowl at the 101. So thinking about that CMC conundrum that you have when everyone in the back half takes CMC, I've been seeing a lot more people take CeeDee Lamb at the 101, which allows you for more optionality that we were talking about with Short Gamer TV's previous team. So it should be fun. 10-man final. Like Stack's avatar, he's got the goat horns up, purple background, legit. Just a little update. I've been really high on the Kansas City Chiefs. More defensive injuries have happened while we're waiting for these picks. The middle linebacking core is all injured. it'll be interesting to see what Kansas City can take advantage of in the playoffs. So Lamar goes to crutches again. He's all in on him. Normal shake up here. Let's see if Sack can adapt. That'll be interesting to see. Because my money's on yes. Another 104 Josh Allen. This is setting up for an interesting attack. MSOS said he does not like taking the 101. He likes the back half of the draft, it seems like. So we're going to see what he does here. Debo goes. Interesting. I like that. So right now we got a difficult decision here. He's trying to dictate. It's going to dictate the whole draft form pretty much how he goes. So I think he's settled in on Brandon Ayuk. I think that's going to be one of the picks. And then he can figure out if he wants Kittle or if he wants to go Baltimore with Lamar off the board, which will be a little tough in my opinion. But it leaves some open for like some crazy late round falling NFC quarterbacks. So it's interesting. Kittle's a safe play. Flowers is a home run. I love it. And then I love Tyreek Hill. He's playing on one leg. So I'm a little worried about him. I don't know how many times you guys saw Sunday night. He literally was going off the field like every seventh or eighth play because he goes for that crazy jump that Tua does and he can't make it. But he is a true game breaker. So we're going to see what happens here. So our MSOS, he goes Purdy. He takes the Debo Purdy, stacking it up. Not bad. So we got two great San Francisco pieces. So we're hoping for a San Francisco Super Bowl. Diggs goes to Josh Allen drafter. Crutches will more than likely take Zay Flowers, which will leave the EDJ a decision to make, and that'll push it to Copper to see what he wants to do. Sometimes we see at the 101 we'll still Diggs Allen, but Diggs and Allen in our drafts have both been going really early. So EDJ gets a nice CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill start. I think I've only gotten one of those. I think Sack is loaded up to the gills on that. So Copper goes for Rashee Rice and Patrick Mahomes, neglecting Isaiah Pacheco. And it looks like a similar build for crutches. Lamar, Zay, Amon-Ra. A lot of optionality for those two guys at the 2 and 3 hole. It'll be interesting to see what the 4 team does with an NFC pairing, or does he go straight James Cook to get him all the guys? It's a little bit blurry. I can still make out the names, Steph. So Sterling goes for Jay Cook. Pacheco's taken to the San Francisco drafter. So this will be interesting. We once again are getting put in a dilemma here. Yes, Bill. Bam is going undrafted. It's a travesty. He's the future finals MVP. Bam Adebayo, Miami Heat legend. I like it. Little Raheem Mostert, Jalen Waddle action. Basically a little contrarian from our pick. No matter what, we're going to have someone in the second round. I like that. Against the San Francisco 49ers. So we got Raheem. I think they've been resting Raheem knowing that they're going to the playoffs. So he's got a great chance to explode week 1. And Jalen Waddle's also getting healthy. They're really nice high upside leverage picks, which give him access to the Miami offense, especially when we took San Francisco early. But MSOS goes Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco. Copper Price does not get the elite build. Let's see here. Oh, Sterling's going all in on the Buffalo Philly team, it looks like. Crutches, Detroit, Dallas bringbacks for Baltimore. Nice. EDJ says, no way. I'm taking Dak right now. Yes, that Purdy went at the 205. Or excuse me, 202. Excuse me. Yeah, at the 5 spot, Steph. So Copper Prices, after taking the CMC pick, says, you know what? I'm betting on the Rams. I don't care if they're going to play them in round 2. I'm taking them. No matter what, I'm going to have one of those guys come to the conference finals because he thinks the Rams are going to upset the Detroit Lions, which is more than possible. I like how this played out for us here. You know, we got 2 explosive backs. Whichever back goes off, maybe both of them. It'll be a great pick. And then I think we're done at running back at that point. You got the 2 Miami guys, and you're hoping for the best. You got 4 concentrated attack on the Miami, so you don't even need to get another guy. I probably would get one more, maybe like Cedric Wilson or Durham Smythe, like we talked about, but that's about it. And he's free to build anything on the NFC side as well. So he can take anyone he wants for points at this point to get those other 2 guys to the next round. And I'll say this about the team. It's explosive, explosive, explosive. If Miami shows up and that offense shows up and they can somehow beat the strong Kansas City defense, I'm going to be a very poor person. But at least we'll be together on this team. Interesting strategy. Interesting strategy. I thought about that last draft where I literally was like, man, Jalen's still falling. I might have to take him with A.J. Brown. And then Crutches did the right thing and scooped him up. And we can see the board here, Sack, if you get a chance. So Sterling's going Philly all the way. So he's basically doing a 5-5. Crutches is breaking down his Dallas and Detroit bet with his Baltimore team. EDJ is going Dallas with bits of everything. Copper Prices is buying into the LA Rams and Kansas City. A little piece of San Francisco, too. Go ahead, Zach. Close that out. So we got an interesting development here. A lot of options. Hi, Poppy. We got a lot of interesting options here. I'm going to let him make his picks. Come here. Come on. Yeah, nice. Another NFC option. Dallas Goedert leaves you open for another late round Philly pick. Love it. You got San Francisco guys. Yeah, if you buying some points. I like that. Buying some points. 2 tight ends, Dallas Goedert and Dalton Schultz. High red zone targets. I like it. Our main goal is getting out of this first round with Miami and San Francisco, and that's what we're doing here. Let me tell you, if this was the FFPC draft, we'd be banking right now. Love it. Yeah, interesting thought. But you're going to be battling Galen against other teams that have one of the San Francisco pieces with all these guys. I have that on a couple of my teams already. So just keep that in mind when you're drafting.
Man, the Nico Collins snipe here really hurt. Definitely was hoping to get Nico Collins to come back. Thought one of Njoku or Collins might make it there.
No, I think you did the right thing, getting some good points for the week 1. I think you're in a tough room. Like I said, the 5 and 6 spot now, if people are playing correctly or incorrectly, is really hard because you're not getting a lot back like you were.
Yeah, they're definitely harder. You can if you get in a room that makes some mistakes, I really like the 6, but if you're in a room without many mistakes, it's pretty tough.
Shout out to Pope, our draft underdog draft consigliere. She's the best. She gives us all. She does a lot of great work over at Underdog. Thank you. Yeah, I think you did really well. I like the Dallas Cowboys pick, especially if AJ Brown or Devonta Smith is not ready for Week 1, and I think that's a great pick. They'll have to use it. And then, like I said, you can take another running back here at Devin Singletary. You don't have to, but it's great. He's going to get guaranteed touches. D'Amico Ryans loves to run the ball, even though they have a stellar quarterback that can throw it. Yeah, I like that pick. I usually tend to go to him. He's getting a lot more action in the 4-minute offense.
Yeah, it's always Wilson here. Just deciding if it's Gainwell or Noah Brown.
Noah Brown's going to be low owned, obviously. So if he goes off, you're probably going into the next week. Gainwell's way more safer. If you're doing it for Week 1, go Brown. If you're doing it for like the play against Miami, I'd go KG.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do Gainwell here. I think for Week 1, we're looking fine at wide receiver. We got 4 darts to pick from. Gainwell could help in Week 1 too a little bit if we end up with one of these guys busting and one of these hits our flex. So I think it was close there. The Singletary snipe was painful yet again.
Yeah, I think it's good. I'll let you talk about the team, but you got four Miami guys, and you got a couple guys on the other side to battle them back in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so we started with the Ayuk Kittle. Some right now with the way rooms are, sometimes this is enough to bully people off 49ers. Like in your mitten streets, you might just like do this, and then no one wants to take Purdy anymore. Let's rename this guy.
Perfect name.
So yeah, when we go Ayuk Kittle, I'm doing it because the upside of getting Purdy back is tremendous. Even if it happens like 1 out of 100 times, it doesn't. I feel confident in being able to play it either through Miami or KC because that's most likely the viable option we're going to get back that comes to us. You also can do the Browns way that Chris played. You know, if we go the Browns, we get the full team stack, right? We get Cooper, we get Njoku, we get Ford, we get everything. But since he had just done the 49ers with Browns, is like, I gotta diversify our bonds here a little bit. So, with with Rashee Rice and Pacheco and Mahomes all coming off the board really early here, Chiefs are pretty much closed for business. And when I saw the Lamb drafter get Hill to fall all the way to him, that pretty much, is the green light for me then. Like, okay, I can go ahead and pursue Miami, especially after he takes Pollard here. I know he's very likely using one of these next 2 picks on Dak. And so that means I just have to fade 1 pick of him taking a Miami piece. So overall, we got not the highest Super Bowl probability outcome, but one of the higher ones with it, having San Francisco in it. And anything could happen in the playoffs. I agree with G. I don't love the back half of the room right now. Honestly, the CD spot feels pretty nutted. Like if you end up, I really like the CD spot into like Dallas and Baltimore. I like it quite a bit, actually. And I like it so much in small field stuff like this, where we talked about, can you win the finals with only 3 or 4 pieces? Like, I kind of like doing Dallas with a pretty heavy team stack plus Baltimore. And then if you get the chance, like maybe a Kittle comes back here, maybe you end up with like CD Kittle, Zay Flowers, and then you're praying that Pollard comes back here. And you can build it so that if the Cowboys and the 49ers meet in the conference championship and get knocked out, well, it's small field. Maybe I advance still to the finals and I have 4 Baltimore and San Francisco players without a quarterback, and that's still enough to get me there. But I would only really do that in those really small finals type contests.
Hey, we got time for one question before we go for the finals, the national championship comes.
Yeah, I don't know about taking Hurts there, because if Tua doesn't hit my lineup here, like, aren't I probably dead? And I've got so many Dolphins. Like, I'm playing that the Dolphins are having a day. So if he doesn't hit my lineup there, I don't feel like I'm in a great spot to advance even with Hurts. Say Tua duds, the probability of Mostert, Waddle, and A-Chain all doing enough for me to advance with a better score from Hurts, I think is thinner than taking Gainwell here on the probability that, like, hey, it's one of Mostert or Achane, and maybe Jalen Waddle isn't all the way right yet in round 1, and Goddard and Schultz do enough to get me there, and Gainwell hits the lineup. So, like, I can see the argument for Hurts there, but with how heavy we went on Miami, I kind of was preferring to do the Gainwell path, especially with having both of our running backs be from Miami and our quarterback from Miami. We've got like a good amount of same week negative correlation here. So that was my thought process behind. It's why I didn't really consider Hurts there, and why I was more, Gainwell or Noah Brown.
Yeah, it makes total sense, man. I mean, you're betting on the Miami Dolphins to dominate and score a ton of fantasy points. If that doesn't happen, you're dead anyways.
Yeah, and Hurts does not score any points in the 49ers Super Bowl, right? Because in round 2, it's going to be 49ers Eagles most likely, unless we get an upset, which the upset now looks a lot more live with Rams Lions line being a little closer. But I still, for the ship chasers, I want to play this one very technically sound. I want to stick to the fundamentals. I think I did that with this build. So
no, I think you're right.
Hope one of these two runs pure, Chris. Hope we can take it down to the brand.
We have to. And if anything, we have the FFPC playoffs to fall back on.
Yep.
So we're good to go. Well, guys and gals, it's been great. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we'll see you around. You got anything to add, Sack?
No. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and thanks for trusting Chris and I to draft the Big Mittens here for the fam. Hope we make you guys proud.
Bye, guys.